Let's get some
Are we on now then?
Yes.
We are.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the City Council Legislative Subcommittee to order for March 11th. Present are Hoy and Bennett. Have we got anyone else, any counselors? Okay, and staff to be identified, and we'll go ahead with our first piece of business. Justin?
Hey, good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and our wonderful staff, as always. Nice to see everybody today. We will do a quick little legislative wrap up. We got a pizza party scheduled here at Perseverance Strategies, so I'll try to work through this really quick. And if anybody's got specific questions about the session, as you know, Mr. Mayor, as a former lobbyist and now Councilor Hoy, Representative Hoy, I try to forget everything as soon as they leave the building. So
Yeah,
hopefully
I don't know how else you live.
hopefully we won't have too many problems, but I'll just focus today mainly on funding, right? We did really, really well again. And I think as everybody has heard, these short sessions are really kind of focused around funding, with the exception of Representative Hoy, who actually got a policy bill passed in a short session, which is
congratulations.
Yeah, awfully impressive. Not even running for the seat, and was able to get some things done. So really impressive. So with that, I think I will just focus on, I'd like to then touch on a couple other things, some interim dates. I don't think everybody's got, I think council will be presented with our final report here in a little bit, right, Courtney? And then finally, just talk a little politics, and we'll move on, take questions from folks. So is there anything anybody else would like me to cover?
We'll talk about the money. Why don't you take us through it? Chris had given us, I'd heard Chris give a presentation on it as well, and I don't care either one of you, but I think you did very well for us. So give us another run at it.
Yeah, big thanks, obviously, to Councilor Hoy / Representative Hoy, and then all of our Salem delegation, as well as our Senate president. Kind of his final hurrah, but definitely able to get some things done. I think when we start talking about the interim and looking forward to 2023, we will have to take into account that a longtime friend and advocate for the city is moving on. So we'll get into that. But looking at House Bill 5202, a lot of things and a lot of our priorities were in there. First and foremost, the $1.9 million for the funding gap for our navigation center. Wonderful news. And then finally, the $1.5 million for Yaquina Hall. We got that done in there. There was a big package, $25 million for local governments. Obviously, that helps us greatly. Another $2.5 million for the city of Salem included in that. There was a $3 million.
What's that 2.5 for then, Justin?
So a couple things, four things: support of temporary emergency shelters, sanctioned camping, safe parking sites, navigation centers that are low barriers like ours, hygiene services, including portable toilets, shower trucks, laundry services, storage, washing station, hygiene supplies, etc. Outreach for people to connect to those centers, including shelter housing services. And then it can't be used to backfill existing revenue streams or funds. But again, the 2.5 million is certainly welcome. The next
when's the money arrive? How will that arrive? Do you know?
I don't know that, Mr. Mayor. I can find out when we get it. Courtney, do you know?
I do. And so we are expecting to receive a grant from DAS for that purpose. And it would be very similar to the other grants that we've received over the last two sessions for this purpose. And our practice is to bring that grant to the council. Our date would be on March 28th is our aim. And so we would just ask your approval to receive that grant. And that sets out in a formal way what we're responsible for producing and on what timeline.
Out of the 2.5 million?
Precisely.
Okay, and Chris, is that then running through the Mid-Valley Homeless Alliance, or how is that being
No, that's coming
manage?
directly to the city, and we could do with it at pretty much, like Justin mentioned, we can pretty much use it for any homeless services we
Right.
want. There are very few
Okay.
strings, a wide variety of options for us. And no, it's coming directly to the city. We could send some of it to the homeless lines if we chose to, but we could target it however we see fit, as long
Any
as it
way we
gets
want
that
to
service.
then.
Pretty
Because
much.
I know you had talked about a couple of employees at the Homeless Alliance, and I just wondered if there were, but any way we want to do it. So how, Courtney, how'll that be packaged up? When will we start seeing the breakdown of those monies?
Well, we want to acknowledge that the council's accepted the grant.
They will.
And so that we're doing on the 28th. And then it's a
Right.
question of how
Okay.
to prioritize those funds. So that
Right.
we just need to see the specifics about what is eligible. We certainly know what's in the bill, as Justin's reported and as Representative Hoy's reported. We know what's in the bill, but it's really the detail in the grant that we look forward to understanding when we get a copy of it
Okay.
from DAS. Just also to
But
notice.
I guess what I'm asking is deploying the impact of a grant like that. I think that's what the folks that are watching this, if there are any advocate groups watching this, or we'll look at it later, is kind of understanding what our timeline for deployment of this kind of funding. This is the kind of thing that catches their attention, I think, for us and for them.
Yes, and I would just notice that it's moving, feels to me more quickly than the other grants that we have been in receipt of from DAS.
Okay, great.
It's moving more quickly, but our next step is to take it on the 28th to the council. And then it's really about, given all of the priorities in this area, how are we going to use those funds to further the council's objectives? And that's the question. And then
that'll be the staff bringing that to the council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then
sometime after the 28th of March.
Yes, please. And then if I could also just notice, I think, Justin, you're probably about to mention another 750,000.
I got three more things, Courtney.
Go for it.
Okay.
The 750,000 for trash pickup, debris cleanup, abandoned vehicle removal, provision of dumpsters, trash bins, employee contractor costs associated with voluntary trash collection and mitigation. That's also a part of 5052. Then we got about 540,000 for the airport upgrade, also within that bill. And then Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency got almost $1 million for shelter services out of that same bill.
Great.
Were those the ones you were going to hit on, Courtney?
Yes, and I would also just like to note that the 2.5 million from DAS for sheltering and those other purposes, we've seen an early draft of that grant agreement. We have not yet seen that second piece, that 750,000. So our aim is to try to take both to you as council on the 28th. It's just contingent on getting that second piece together. So that's how quickly it is moving.
Great. Well, I'm really glad to hear you expediting this. I mean, that it's going to move as quickly as possible toward the street. I think that'll be great. That'd be really helpful. Yeah, Chris.
I just wanted to mention also, this isn't money coming to the city, but it's certainly going to help our cause. And that's from House Bill 4123. Polk County is getting $1 million to coordinate homeless services, which is going to significantly impact our homeless services work on the other side of the river, which will directly help us significantly. They're doing that in coordination with the Homeless Alliance. I'm really excited about that too.
Great. And that will that go through their human services program, or how will that come into play? Do you know?
I believe it's going to the county and then it'll be dispersed out. They have an agreement all set up and the county's kind of taking the lead on it. Polk County.
Who is it again?
Polk. So Commissioner Jeremy Gordon is kind of taking the lead on that.
Jeremy is? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
He's got Monmouth and Independence and everybody's kind of working together on it.
Great. All right.
All right. That's 5052, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Stapleton has joined us.
Sorry, I'm so bright. I'm not at my desk. Somehow my Zoom wasn't working. Councilor Hoy / Representative Hoy, you want to talk about your policy bill real quick?
Sure. So 4037 was the bill I was able to get passed with a lot of help from our local partners. That requires DAS to work with the city of Salem to lease us unused or underutilized property for the purposes of locating microshelter communities. So we have a map of the properties that are available to us. DAS has our criteria that we use to scrutinize those properties, and hopefully we're going to have a meeting in the near future to sort of narrow down the list of potential properties that might be used. A couple of the things I learned during the process. Initially, I had ODOT and DOC in the bill, but apparently I ran into a little problem with the Constitution, so I had to get rid of ODOT. Little thing like Constitution, because their ODOT property actually is in a trust fund, and it has to be kept whole. And so they couldn't allow us to use their property for anything other than real market value, and so pretty much just eliminated them out. So we just eliminated them out of the bill, and then DOC really didn't have anything that would have been suitable. The one property that I thought they had, which is the Dome building, actually belongs to DAS. It doesn't even belong to DOC. Yeah. So that's still in play. It just doesn't belong to DOC. So there's quite a lot of options, and I'm hopeful that one will work. And I know that there's already talk about expanding this program to other cities. People are really eager to. The Senate was really interested in expanding it, and I was able to discourage that for this session and let them work on it in another session so we could get our bill and expand it later. Thanks.
It's always a good plan. It's very good.
Don't make this more complicated in the short session.
Yeah, exactly. Don't kill our bill with love.
Excellent. Well, Mr. Mayor and councilors, that is the funding piece. I talked a little bit about politics, and we've got Councilor Stapleton here. She hasn't heard as much as everybody else, staff, and you, Mr. Mayor, and you, Councilor Hoy. What do we do in the interim, right? What does your government relations consultant or what does your lobbyist do during this next 10 months? And as everybody knows, we are seeing a massive amount of change within the legislature. A lot of open seats, a lot of folks retiring out, including our very own Senate president. So what we will do for the next 10 months internally, working with staff, we've got our principles and our priorities. We will go and evaluate what we saw both in the 21 session and in the short 22 session. We will figure out those priorities. And then my job on your behalf is to build those relationships with those new members or those candidates. And whether a candidate is on the Republican side or the Democratic side, or even non-affiliated, I will utilize those opportunities to educate them as to what the city's doing, what we're all about, what our priorities are, and why this would benefit not just Salem, but other municipalities and the state as a whole. So we really utilize this interim time to get a lot of work done, because when we're outside of that compressed time frame, which is a 5, 10, 15-minute meeting, or 30 seconds on an elevator, or 1 or 2 minutes pulling a legislator off the floor, this is really an opportunity to sit down, get to know those members, build those relationships, and build some trust. So when we are in that compressed time frame, they already know our issues, they know our priorities, and they know where we're going. So we really do get our work done in the interim.
Great. Well, I hope as you need any of us on the council, you'll let us know for any of those meetings. And remember, we're having a fairly substantial turnover on the council as well. So we're going to want to get at least some of these current and future council members up to speed, sort of understanding what our relationship with the legislature is like.
And I really, with the loss of the Senate president and the loss of our representative in Clem, I mean, the education piece is really going to be critical during this interview. So we're gonna have to work hard to do that. Yeah,
it's true. Okay,
Councilor Hoy.
Any questions then? Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
I just have one comment to bring everybody else up to speed a bit. At the last week or so of the short session, Justin and I were working hard to try to get Senate Bill 1557 passed. That's a bill that directly impacts one of our housing units here in Salem, over in West Salem, actually. Wasn't in my district, but it's in our city. So it's a a housing development here that's affordable currently and is going into market rate.
Right.
There's also one in
Yeah.
Tiger. They were paired together in a bill. We tried really hard to get that funding, so we didn't. So we have it's over 200 families who are at risk of losing their housing in West Salem because this bill we weren't able to pass it. But we have. The reason I brought it up now is because it's some interim work that's happening. Representative Graber and I are continuing to push for that. And so we have a meeting coming up. We don't have the date pinned down yet, but we're still working on that issue. We haven't let that go yet. So even though that bill died, we're still trying to save that housing unit over in West Salem. And Senator Patterson and Representative Evans are also aware of it and working on it. But Representative Graber and I, along with another senator, are working hard to really try to make that happen, because it's going to be a big impact for West Salem and for our residents if we don't get that saved.
Is there funding in the, and I'm just going to talk about it generically, in the housing fund that the state has? Is that the concept, is go in and get some money out of that to help us out on it?
Yes, and that's basically the reason we were given that it wasn't, that the bill died, because there's money elsewhere. And so we're going to try to get in and extract some of that out for this specific purpose right away. So
Good.
Yeah.
Well, if there's anything I can do to help you out, I'd be more than happy to. That is just such a good use of that fund. Have we talked to the governor's office yet about that, and to see if?
I took advantage of a little field trip I had with the governor and the interim director of OHCS. We visited the Project Turnkey over at the Arches Inn one morning during the session. It was just the three of us and another representative. And I took the advantage of my time with her to mention that. And so it's on all of their radar. And so we're just trying to figure out a solution for it. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Are we using the regional solutions avenue at all in this, talking with our regional solutions person to help us out at all?
That's a good thought. Not currently, but we can definitely bring them into
Might take a look at that. I found that a couple of times to be real helpful.
Thank you. I'll definitely keep that.
Did we get funding for our 50th anniversary? How'd that turn out? Okay.
No, no, we didn't.
No one bought that one.
No.
Kind of like the
acid ball didn't get any money either.
Well, it might take a little while to get it done.
Okay.
We did get, though, CAMS 3, which is the next phase of the remodel to the Capitol building, which is going to be up to 2,500 new jobs in the city to do that construction. So that's critical work that's got to happen. Plus, it's right in the core of our city, 2,500 jobs through 2025.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That we've really been lucky having that whole thing going on, and to go on for such a protracted period is amazing.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, then, Mr. Mayor, since you guys don't have the report in front of you yet, you will be getting it prior to your 28th or on the 28th. The key days, everybody knows, May 17th, big primary election coming up. And then we get the revenue forecast the day after on May 18th. Then we've got interim days in early June, June 1st through 3rd. We've got another revenue forecast in August 31st. Then we've got another set of interim days in that third week of September. And then our initial deadline to request legislation pre-filed is September 23rd. We've got the general election on November 8th. Should be an interesting one, a mid-presidential cycle. And the party that's not in the majority usually does pretty well. But again, we'll see how redistricting affects some of these districts. Nikki and I are still waiting on numbers from the Secretary of State's office in looking at specific candidates and what the new districts mean in terms of registration advantage, one side or the other. So we will have that data. We will be sharing that with our team in planning for that November 8th election. Then we've got another revenue forecast, November 16th. December 5th is another deadline for pre-session filed legislation. Interim days, early December, 7th through 9th. The drop deadline is December 21st, and then the legislative session begins that second Monday of 2023. So there's our little roadmap in terms of the calendar and our timeline. And again, we'll be working with candidates the politics of this, trying to figure out who's going to be where and how it's going to affect our Salem delegation as well as the rest of the state in terms of numbers for majority in the House and the Senate. And then we've got a governor's race. So we will be injecting our priorities into that governor's race as well.
Great.
Justin, along those lines, if you have specific bills you want drafted, I have an opportunity to get some in. We'd have to have somebody else ready to pick them up to carry them, but I could get the drafts going. So if there's anything that we need, I don't have any other plans for bills. So at this point, so I'm happy to facilitate that if there's something I can do.
Yeah, I think Courtney, at our next meeting with staff and looking at our framework and our guiding principles, I think we should have some things pretty early that we should be able to take advantage of your position to get those in.
And so just by way of, the legislative outline, the timeline that Justin just provided us, then has an impact on our work together and when we come together again. So we probably will be reconvening no later than May to start moving the legislative priorities, if there are going to be any changes for the coming session, and then start thinking about those key policy issues that we want to try to influence, to your point, Councillor Hoy. The other thing that helps is to start identifying any of those funding initiatives or priorities at that point too, because it helps, I think, for those legislative days and some of the other interim work that Justin's doing on our behalf. So I'd like to try to pull us all back together so that we're ready in May with some of those priorities. And just the report that we're mentioning is on March 28th, you're also going to be receiving a summary report of this last session we've just experienced together. And it'll provide an update on all of the funding initiatives, the policy initiatives, and then has that interim schedule, just like that. And so we're aiming for that on March 28th.
Sounds good.
Just one thought on that, Mr. Mayor, also.
Yeah.
On Courtney, on 4036, which is the payment in lieu of taxes bill that didn't get any distance in the session, which I kind of anticipated, but it laid some really good groundwork, and there were a lot of really good conversations. And I think that during this next session, there might be an opportunity to actually get that passed. And so if we could do some better, we'll have more time to do more homework in terms of direct impact to our emergency services, in terms of numbers. I think this would be a good opportunity to push that along. And I know that there are local legislators who are ready to pick up that ball and run with it, sort of laid the groundwork in this session, and now they can pick it up again. Like I said, I think there are a lot of people. Every time we had a rally or something outside on the streets, I mentioned it to my colleagues. Oh, by the way, all that stuff that's happening out there, that's city's responsibility because it's on the streets and you're not paying a dime for it. So I tried to plant that seed quite a bit, and we'll see.
Thank you. And we do, I had started to collect some of the data, but hadn't shaped it just, in preparation for the opportunity to provide more detail. But as it didn't arise and we were working on other things, I'm holding on to it. And so we'll be ready to do that deeper exploration of the impact.
Great.
So again, with everyone's permission, we would be looking at your calendars and availability and collecting you together again in May to start moving the next session forward.
Okay.
And we will
Sounds
definitely take advantage of Representative Hoy still being there. And I had a nice 30-minute debrief with the Senate Majority Leader yesterday. Our Senate President will remain in that role until they go into their meetings in November post-election, figure out who the new leadership is going to be. So he will be.
Is Rob going to run for the presidency? Is he? No, really? Darn.
I think he likes the political aspect of being majority leader.
Yeah.
As you know, it's hard to do both. So yeah, that's what I've heard. So we will see. I wouldn't want to speculate in March prior to a November 8th election. And what's that worth anyway, right? Your lobbyist speculating 8 months before an election. So, but we still do have, obviously we've got resources in there to Councillor Hoy's point to get our priorities, like 4036 and 1557 drafted and ready to go and start working them. So.
Well, and even as Courtney mentioned, really getting them in front of interim committees if need be. Particularly these policy bills are ones that if you'll sure find out if you've got hope there pretty quickly and what you need to do to change them. It's a great way to work them through. So that'll be good. I think that'll be really helpful. I hope we can take advantage of that as quickly as possible, that Chris can get these drafts done for us. That really helps, I think, as you try to work your way through in advance, get into the lineup before the thing starts. So, okay.
That's all I had, Courtney.
That's all I had as well. This was really just an opportunity to close out the session and then start forecasting what's next as we move into the new session.
Now we've got this list of priorities. Do you need anything on that, or is that just to let us know how things are going?
That was just a sort of a guide to remind us that we were successful on Uquina and successful.
Oh, okay.
So that was just a guide to remind us that to
a score sheet for Justin. That's what we need.
There you have it.
Okay. Very good. Did anyone have anything else you want to go over? All right. See you next time. We're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.